Welcome into NFL on 365 Sports. Today, we're going to continue our mock drafts and we're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys today. Very excited about this one, so let's get into it. Okay, welcome in. Today, we are talking about the Dallas Cowboys, one of the most storied franchises in the NFL and one of the most polarizing. This has been a really interesting offseason just because there hasn't been too much to talk about. Obviously, Amari Cooper is gone. Really weird situation there where they let him go for essentially nothing to the Cleveland Browns, which was kind of weird. But it opens up a need on the roster for a wide receiver. If you look at their roster, they were able to re-sign Michael Gallup. CeeDee Lamb is obviously still there. And then they have Dalton Schultz at tight end. So I think they feel okay about their receiving options, but it's definitely an area that needs to be addressed in the draft. There's also a few other needs on the defensive side that we will get into as we go through their first three picks of the NFL draft. Starting with pick number 24, I think this is going to be another situation where the Cowboys, not that they necessarily get suckered into it, but I just think they're going to go out and take the best offensive weapon available, and that's just what they're going to do. They did it with CeeDee Lamb, and it paid off to an extent for them, even though he hasn't completely broken out yet. But I think they try to bolster that unit, try to give Dak more weapons, try to just get this team to another level offensively, because at times, even with all that talent, for some reason, they continue to be stagnant on that side of the ball, even though this past year they were really good defensively. So I think at pick 24, they go out and they take Arkansas wide receiver Treylon Burks. Obviously, Jerry Jones has a great connection to the Arkansas program. I think Burks fills a need for them. He gives them an outside receiver, but he also just gives them kind of another freak show athlete, which the Cowboys love when you're talking about Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and then, of course, Burks, if he ends up there. Just a freak show. And when you turn on the tape, he is way faster than his 40 times says. I mean, he's running by SEC cornerbacks, and a lot of those guys are going to be playing on Sunday, and he's running by them like they're standing still. I don't think the combine did him justice. I think the tape is a much better view of kind of what Burks can bring to the table. And I mean, the numbers, I think, kind of bear that out. You know, this past year, he had over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. He also had 100 yards and a touchdown on the ground. As a sophomore, he had 820 yards and 7 touchdowns in just 9 games. So a great breakout age there as a sophomore. And great production. He just continues to produce in a really tough conference despite not having a great quarterback ever in his time at Arkansas. I think that makes him really special. Arkansas loved running the football. They got him the ball in various ways, but they never really had that pure elite quarterback that could get him the ball whenever he was open. So I think at the next level, he has an opportunity to be really good because of those things. And I think when you're talking about Dak Prescott and kind of what they need from their wide receivers, they need guys that can create yards after a catch, but they also need a field stretcher. And I think that will be Michael Gallup to an extent, but I think what Burks can do in the slot and outside just gives them such a unique weapon and a guy they can use in the run game as well, along with CeeDee Lamb, which is really an interesting part of this, that he and Lamb can kind of feed off each other a little bit in the run game, in the yards after catch department. It could make this team extremely explosive. So I really like that fit there. I think he'd be a great pick for the Cowboys at pick 24. Moving on to pick 56 in the second round. Really excited about this one. So we saw what Micah Parsons did as a pass rusher, as just an elite defensive player. So now I think the Cowboys go out and get another true pass rusher. And Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State is kind of the perfect fit in my mind. The last 2 years, 104 tackles, 26.5 tackles for loss, and 13.5 sacks in his last 18 games because of the shortened COVID year. That is sensational production, and I have no idea how this guy's falling down draft boards. But if he falls to them at 56 to get an elite pass rusher who really just seems like he's just beginning to scratch the surface of his potential, I think has to be really appealing for this Cowboys defense as they try to take another step in the right direction after really having a very solid year last year on the defensive side. Moving on to pick 88, their third of their first 3 picks here. And this is where I think they try to build some depth up front. Especially on the interior of their defensive line. I think Thomas Booker, the defensive tackle out of Stanford, a 6'4", 310-pound guy, played some defensive end at Stanford, but I think you can slide him inside. He has plenty of size for it. And just a big dude with a lot of strength who can be a very good run stopper for this defense. I think he fits really well, gives them the depth they need, and really addresses a major concern that I have with them on the interior of their defensive line. Moving on to some other great fits for the Cowboys. If Chris Olave falls to them at 24, they might be interested in him. I prefer Burks over Olave. Some people don't, so he could be a nice fit there if he does fall that far. George Pickens from Georgia, another high-end option, another great wide receiver with high upside, big boomer bust potential. Devin Lloyd, the linebacker out of Utah, is another name that's come up a lot with the Cowboys' first pick at 24. And then in the second round, John Mechie, the wide receiver out of Alabama, and then Logan Hall, the big defensive tackle out of Houston, are 2 other very good options, I think, for the Cowboys to address the defensive side of things. Now, as far as trade options go, I think, if they were to move up, I think it would be to either target one of the higher-end wide receivers or to target one of the better pass rushers available. So I think they'd probably have to get inside the top 12 in order to make this happen, which would require giving up pick 24 and then a little bit on top as well. Actually, probably quite a bit on top, to be honest. But I think they would probably do it in order to maybe go up and get a Garrett Wilson or a Jamison Williams or a Drake London. Just try to move up a tier at wide receiver. I would love Garrett Wilson on the Cowboys. I think Drake London would be a great fit as well as an outside receiver. But they do have Michael Gallup. Let's not forget about that. I know he's coming back from injury, so I don't think they necessarily have to trade up into that region to get a good wide receiver. The one guy who I am looking at who I think, man, he'd make a lot of sense there and he'd kind of bring that freaky aspect to the Cowboys defense is Jermaine Johnson, the defensive end out of Florida State. Great pass rusher, very explosive, very good athlete. He's the guy that I could see the Cowboys potentially trading inside the top 12, maybe 15 to try to get. But those are some of the guys I see for the Cowboys. I think this is going to be a very good draft class for them. They have good picks, and they're kind of spread out. I think they're going to be able to find some really good pieces to add to their puzzle going into next season. But for Grayson Grunefer, this has been NFL on 365 Sports.